Buenas noches. Hablo poco de español, but I will be speaking in English, and Fabian will be translating, so thank you very much for your support on that. Today I want to try to do a practical philosophy talk. Philosophy has a reputation for being very abstract, and it can be, but all of those abstractions, when translated into practice, make life and death differences. And so the impact of abstract philosophical ideas on political practice is my theme. And what I want to do today really is make 2 points. I'll telegraph them at the beginning. The first one is philosophy, right, and culture are more important than politics. Obviously, politics matters crucially. Politics can kill people. Politics can make people's lives miserable. Politics can also open up a space in which people can flourish and survive and put together wonderful lives. But politics depends on broader culture, and it depends on philosophy, and that's the point that I want to make first. In philosophy and culture, probably the most significant issue, particularly for younger people who become the leaders, the parents, the teachers, and administrators of the next generation, is when they are young, who their heroes are. Now, ethics as a branch of philosophy is about the meaning of life, what is good, what is bad, what's important, what's not important, what is significant. And as thoughtful human beings, we are always engaged with questions about our lives. Like, what are we going to do with our lives? But those issues are very abstract, and one way we concretize or bring down to earth, particularly when we are young, is in the form of the people we look up to. Right? We look up to movie stars because they stand for a certain kind of lifestyle, or sports heroes. Typically, when we become older, we start to admire people in professions, perhaps policemen, right, or people in business, or teachers, and so on. But different cultures have different kinds of heroes, different kinds of role models whom they uphold for young people. And depending on the kinds of heroes who are upheld and promoted, cultures go in very different directions. So what I want to do today is, before we plunge into my argument for why we should see entrepreneurs as heroes, as cultural heroes, and work to promote entrepreneurship, I want to pause and make a little historical point, because I know Argentina is going through turbulent political times, and that focuses our attention on the short term. In the United States, we also have serious short-term political problems, right, and so forth. But for all of the problems and for all of the reasons why it's easy to be depressed, cynical, and of course there's a lot to be depressed about, there's a lot to be cynical about. Nonetheless, there also is a lot of good news, and there is a lot of grounds for optimism. So I want to start with a chart. This is one of my favorite charts. One of the beautiful things that has happened in the intellectual world over the course of the last generation has been the rise of computer power, enabling scientists, social scientists, and people in the humanities to crunch or put together all sorts of data that when I was a student going through was unimaginable. We used to have to make qualitative arguments about various things. Now we can make quantitative arguments, and they can be displayed in beautiful form. So I want to just dwell on this chart for a moment. Along the bottom here is time. So we go back to the year 0. Rome is in transition from being a republic to becoming its imperial era. It's straddling the life of Jesus Christ, significant to the Western religious traditions. Then we go 500 years, Rome declines. 1,000 years, Europe is in its dark ages. Another 500 years, the Renaissance and Reformation are underway, and then approximately now. So that's 2,000 years of our history. Up the vertical axis here is world population. And what we see is that if we go to around year 0, there were perhaps 200 million people living in the entire world. Right? And then now the world population is pushing 7 billion. a significant number of increasing people right over time. But it's these green dots that I want to focus on, because what those are the best social scientists' estimates of gross domestic product. That is an average, the amount of productivity per person right in the world. And this is the whole world that is averaged. So what we see 2,000 years ago, the world average, the average person is producing $467 right, worth of value every year. And you can only consume what you produce. That number, 1,000 years later, is essentially the same. No progress. Right? You jump another 500 years, there has been 20% improvement, and that is a significant improvement. But if we were to take this line and go back another 1,000 years, another 2,000 years, that line has been flat for almost as long as human beings have been around. But then notice what happens starting in 1600, in 1700, and then unbelievably, in the last 150 years, that line goes almost vertical. That has never happened before in human history. Unbelievable material prosperity has been achieved in the last 200 years. Now, the big question then is, why did that happen? Right? Why in the last 200 years? And not for the many tens of thousands of years of human history? And then a follow-up question, because that did not happen in all countries equally around the world. Many countries around the world are still at this level here.